Hi everyone, this is Ksenia, welcome back. So I have a little review for you today of a trilogy. I only have 2 books, but yeah, this is a trilogy. So this is Winternight Trilogy by Catherine Arden. And the first one is called The Barren Nightingale. The second one that I don't have here is called The Girl in the Tower. And the third one is The Winter of the Witch. I couldn't find the second book because we have just moved to a new house and I have it somewhere in the boxes, so I couldn't be bothered, to tell you the truth. And also I didn't prepare the review because I usually do, I like to be prepared, but I didn't prepare anything because I have just a few weeks before the baby comes, so I have a big stomach right here and he's kicking a lot and it's very hard to concentrate. So this book blends fantasy and history really well. This is set in medieval Russia, which is, I think, the only reason why I picked it up, because I am Russian and it is always interesting to read books written by non-Russian authors that are inspired by Russian culture or set in Russia or anything like that. And most of the times it is disappointing because the authors don't do the research or don't know the culture that well, and it's not fun to read. But Catherine Arden has done a great job with the whole Russianness thing. I think she studied Russian culture and history and all of that, so I think she knows Russian history better than I do. And she has also lived in Moscow, and the book is set in Moscow as well, even though she has lived in present day and this is medieval Russia still. I think it's a good point for her. So the book follows our protagonist, who is called Vasilisa, or Vasia, a short version of her name. And she is quite an unusual girl for her time, just because she is very wild and she is a bit boyish and she doesn't want to get married or go to a convent, the only 2 options available for women at the time. And also she can see all the supernatural creatures that exist in the world. This is the supernatural or fantasy element that the trilogy has, which I really loved. And I think even though there are lots of negatives that I found about the trilogy, I think the supernatural element is what I liked the most, what saved the trilogy for me. All the supernatural stuff, all of those creatures, they come from Russian folklore, and it was amazing to read. It was very rare for me to just read about it in a book, especially in a book written by a non-Russian author. So, for example, if you're Russian or if you're familiar with the Russian culture, just a few creatures that appear there are Водяной, Rusalka, Домовой, Bannik. Lots of creatures. If you are not familiar with Russian folklore, then those were just funny words for you, I guess. All of those creatures appear in this book, in this trilogy, and this is what kept me going. This is what I liked the most. Vasia, apart from being just wild and unconventional, so to say, she can see all of these creatures. And this is the time when they still, for example, for the creature who lives in the oven, who cares about the house, takes care of the house, they still leave bread for him. So they still believe in this creature, the Mavoi. But also they have accepted the new religion, Christianity. They go to church, they have bells ringing every Sunday, and the fact that they believe in God now and they don't believe in Cherti, in these creatures, this makes Cherti disappear because no one believes in them. And again, this is the conflict that I really loved, that kept me going throughout the trilogy. So the first book is quite slow in the beginning, but then the book picks up, and I think around the half of this book I started to really enjoy it because more Cherti appear, more supernatural stuff is happening, and it gets really creepy in a really amazing way. But to me, the biggest problem with this book was that there wasn't any structure. And as I've already said in this video, I really love structure. And there is no set goal for Vasia in, I think, the first half of the book. So it's and the characterization of some people, of some characters, it didn't reach the level that I would have wanted it to reach. So I really enjoyed it, but it didn't reach the level of like proper enjoyment for me. And then the second book that I don't have here, I have it somewhere in the boxes. I didn't like it, so honestly, maybe that's why I didn't find it, because yeah, it's fuck this book. That was rude. Okay, no, not fuck this book. It's just, it suffers from this middle book syndrome, where the first book is great, the last book I'm gonna talk about it is also great, I really loved it, but the second one was just all the supernatural stuff that I enjoyed wasn't there. There was mostly history, and I might be very, very biased just because it's not particularly interesting to me to read about that specific time period of Russia, just because we've learned so much about it in school, and I only have associations of school and of history lessons and of how boring it was. And a few of the characters that I really liked weren't there, so I was hugely disappointed. And those characters, they were villains in the first novel, and I loved them as villains, and so the second book, they're gone. I wasn't even sure if I will pick up the third book after the second, just because I hated the ending and it was so boring, and I couldn't believe that it was the same book as the first one. But I picked it up. I picked up the third book, and this is my favorite in a trilogy. So yeah, this one was great because we have everything coming back to us, all the supernatural elements, all of the villains that I loved in the first novel. So yes, there is again lots of certi, lots of supernatural, lots of these creatures. The amount of history in this book worked for me. I did want to complain a few times, and I think I did complain to my husband a few times, but most of the time, most of the book, it was fine, and I didn't find it too overwhelming. And here, I think this blend of history and fantasy, it worked. But in the trilogy overall, I just want to say that to me, it didn't exactly work as I think the author planned, because I would have preferred the books to be solely about supernatural stuff, about Christianity coming to Russia, and about how certi, these creatures, how they are coping, how Vasia, for example, copes, how she deals with being a religious person and believing in God, in Christian God, and also seeing all of these creatures every day and talking to them and helping them. So this to me was amazing, and this is what I would have wanted the whole trilogy to be about. But the amount of history, to me, it wasn't what I would have wanted. But I think I might be in the minority here, just because I have this bias against this particular time in Russia. But the thing that I don't think is just me, that I actually feel like books could have been better if this was improved, is the structure, or the lack of the structure. If it seems like there is no structure in like a book or a movie or I don't know, the world, there is. And it's amazing. It's very interesting for me to trace the structure in everything that I read or, I don't know, consume. This trilogy really disappointed me in a way, because I really struggled to find the structure, and there is one, I suppose, but it's not the best structure that the book can have. And there were quite a lot of scenes that maybe they take around 50 pages, so quite long scenes, and then they finish and they don't bring anything new to the story. Vasia herself is a really nicely drawn character. She has strengths, she has weaknesses, she has very real emotions that throughout the whole trilogy, and we can see her as a child in the beginning, as she's born, and we see her grow up and evolve and learn, and I really loved all of that. secondary character or the villain. I don't know. It's hard to explain. There is a character who seems to be the villain, and then he becomes a friend. How do I explain it? He's a great character. I really loved him. And he's also the supernatural creature, which is always a plus in my book. And the antagonists, as I've said, one of the antagonists is amazing. I feel like the main characters are all done well, but the secondary characters could have been better. I don't know, I love this book, this trilogy, but I also kind of hate it because I wish it could have been better, and I see ways in which it could have been better. But also I love that it's about Russia, and that it explores medieval Russia and all of these creatures, which I have never seen anywhere done before, apart from Russian literature, obviously. I just wish the second book wouldn't have happened, and I wish it would have been a duology like this. This is good. I like it. Hopefully there was some structure in this video and it is more or less easy to follow. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think. Yeah, thanks for watching, and bye.